Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... This is one of those times where I just was not able to do everything that I had hoped for. And what I mean by that is with this November, I was intending to review some nonfiction horror books that I had recently read. And I had this whole lineup planned, like I was going to call it my nonfiction November lineup. But of course, we're already in the middle of the month, and I haven't had the opportunity to upload a video regarding a horror book that's nonfiction. So, since I'm in a time crunch, what I'm going to do is, with the 3 nonfiction books that I read, I'm going to review one this weekend and hopefully another one next weekend. But with the 3rd book, I'm not going to review it because I didn't enjoy it whatsoever. And if you're wondering what book that is, it was The Mothman Prophecies by John A. Keel. And I just really was disappointed in this because, like, when I was in high school, I loved the movie adaptation. Like, it scared the hell out of me. And when I went into the book, I had some high expectations, but when I discovered that the information about the Mothman was, like, about this much, I was pretty pissed off. Like, I could have gone to Wikipedia and read more about the Mothman on there than I did in this book. And with me being the trooper that I am, I read the book from beginning to end, and it's honestly nothing more than the ramblings of some guy who talks about time travel. He talks about riding off in a UFO. As a matter of fact, there's one occurrence where some dude claims that he rode off in a UFO and went to, like, this nudist colony of aliens on another planet. And it just becomes more and more and more insane from there. Which, that really sucks because I do believe in aliens and UFOs, but I don't believe in the bullcrap that's in that book. And since I'm considering this to be a work of fiction, I had a problem with the author as well. Because the thing is, I think that maybe he was xenophobic or racist, because the majority of the aliens in this book are either Asian or they're black. And I'm like, dude, really? Really? But overall, the Mothman Prophecies felt like I was trapped inside of a room with someone who would not shut up and I could not get away from them. So that was my experience with that book. I did not enjoy it and I don't recommend it. But this video for this weekend is not about that book. This video is about the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. And growing up, I really loved the Amityville Horror movie franchise because it was creepy and some of them were kind of scary. But even with the crappy ones, I enjoyed those too because they were just fun. And watching those even as a kid, I realized that a lot of what I was seeing probably wasn't real because that was just Hollywood trying to amp it up for entertainment's sake. And throughout my life, I considered if I read the book, I would probably gain some more factual information than what I saw on the movies. Well, since I recently read the book, I believe that some of the milder occurrences that happened with the paranormal activity could have been real, because there's been a few times that I've had some paranormal activity happen to me, and it's been similar to the milder cases in this book. But overall, I think that this was just really a convincing work of fiction, and it did, of course, become a game changer for the paranormal subgenre, because it did present some scenarios that had never been done before in a haunted house. So, yeah, it was a fun read if you read it as a work of fiction, but as far as there being any truth to it, I would take this with a grain of salt. But without me rambling on any further, let's go in and get down to what you can expect with the book. The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson focuses on George and Kathy Lutz, who had purchased the quaint colonial home at 112 Ocean Avenue. And even though a home of this type should sell for a lot more than what the Lutzes paid, they understand that its reduced price is because of the mass murder that occurred there the previous year. But George and Kathy are not superstitious, and they're not going to let the past discourage them from this opportunity. So without hesitation, they quickly move their family in, and over the matter of 28 days, they become confronted by disembodied voices, apparitions, and physical attacks. Also, they discover a secret room that may very well be the gateway to hell. In 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his parents and siblings with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle while they slept. After his arrest, DeFeo Jr.'s lawyer, William Weber, gave an insanity plea as DeFeo Jr. testified that he heard voices telling him to kill his family. However, the psychiatrist who the prosecutor brought to stand noted that although DeFeo Jr. was under the influence of heroin and LSD, he knew what he was doing. At the end of the hearings, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder, where he received 6 sentences of 25 years to life. Upon the publication of the Amityville Horror in 1977, Jay Anson noted that Weber commissioned studies at 112 Ocean Avenue, hoping to prove some force at the home could influence human behavior. And Weber felt that this could be the evidence needed to grant DeFeo Jr. a new trial. As of currently, DeFeo Jr. has been denied parole each time he has received a parole hearing. It has been said that the DeFeo murder served as the catalyst for the hauntings experienced by the Lutz family while residing at 112 Ocean Avenue. I really can't say fun facts because people were really affected here, but here's some things you might not know about the Amityville case. While in the past, some of those connected to the Amityville case claim that the Lutzes received no money for their story, William Weber proposed a book contract to the Lutz family offering them 12% in royalties. After George and Kathy declined his proposal, they decided on the author Jay Anson to tell of their experiences. This was when they signed a contract that would gain them 50% of the book royalties. Still, Weber published 2 articles on the Lutz family in New York Sunday News and Good Housekeeping, and because of this, the Lutzes tried to sue Weber for $4.5 million. However, Weber countersued the Lutzes for $2 million, claiming their story was a hoax and they breached contract. Judge Weinstein dismissed the Lutz family lawsuit and said, "Based on what I have heard, it appears to me that a large extent of the book is a work of fiction, relying in a large part upon the suggestions of Mr. Weber." Yet due to Judge Weinstein seeing Weber's ethics were questionable, a day later the countersuit was dropped and the case was dismissed. Eventually, Weber told People magazine that the Amityville Horror was a hoax that he and the Lutzes created over wine. Also, it was later revealed in 2001 that the Catholic priest who was featured in the Amityville Horror testified under oath that the events of the book never happened. While some have speculated the hoax was created because the Lutz family financially bit off more than they could chew, their son Christopher told Spooky South Coast that money wasn't an issue. Also, his brother Daniel confirmed in the documentary My Amityville Horror that money wasn't the problem. Now that we have that covered, it's time to move on to the spoiler section of this video, which, if you haven't read this book before, I'm about to cover some things that could ruin the experience for you. So if you wish to skip this segment, all you have to do is scroll down to the comments, and you'll see that I have a pinned comment at the top. Once you get to that comment, just click on the timestamp that I provided, and it will direct you away from the spoilers and to the thoughts section. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go! Since everyone's had the opportunity to click away, I'd like to talk about some of the creepiest moments in this book, which the first 2 that come to mind regard Jody the Pig Demon, and even though what he does is very subtle, he is also pure nightmare fuel. Like, at the moment, I'm home alone, and just thinking about what goes down has already given me goosebumps. So, yeah, totally effective. But the first time Jody shows up is when it's late at night and George has gone down to the boathouse to investigate some noises. Well, after he sees everything's okay, he turns around to start walking back home, and this is when he notices that his daughter by the name of Missy is watching him from her bedroom window. Well, standing behind her is this huge humanoid pig demon looking thing, which this causes George to have like an oh shit moment, but then fight or flight kicks in and he runs inside to rescue her, but once he gets to her bedroom, he sees that she's fast asleep and everything's okay. So, yeah, that was a total creeper moment. But the next scene that really got to me was when George and Kathy were talking in the sewing room, and Missy comes in to tell them that they need to come to her room because Jody wants to talk to them. And George is like, "Who's Jody?" Well, this is when he learns that Jody is her imaginary friend who happens to be a large pig. So he puts two and two together, and him and Kathy go running into Missy's room where they don't see anyone else in there. But then they look at her bedroom window and see these two red eyes glowing at them from the darkness outside. And when Kathy screams, she grabs a toy and throws it at the window, and the demon runs off into the night squealing like a pig. And, oh, my hair is standing up on end just thinking about how those scenes were constructed. And it's just so very unsettling. But I think the reason why Jody is so effective is because he is a total creeper. And, like, he has no problem making himself known, but at the same time, he feels like a time bomb that's going to explode at any moment. So that really had me on the edge of my seat. And if you're curious to how Jody might have looked, Missy drew a picture of him when she was a little girl. So here's the image, and do keep in mind that it was drawn by a little girl, so don't expect something like Whistler's Mother or American Gothic. Just to let you know what you're looking at, the circles at the top, bottom, and left of the page are supposed to be snowflakes because this happened on a snowy night. The subject that we see in the middle of all of that, which looks like it's running off to the right of the page, is supposed to be Jody the pig. Aside from Jody, another demon that was really effective was the one that appeared on New Year's Eve. Now, what happens here is George and Kathy are sitting in the living room, and it just so happens that Kathy looks up into the fireplace. Well, this is where she sees a demon looking back at her from beyond the flames. And the book describes it as having horns and being in a white robe with a peaked hood. So yeah, total nightmare fuel. But it actually feels more menacing at the end of the book when the house has gone insane. And what happens here is the temperatures inside the house are going up and down. You have doors and cabinets that are opening and slamming shut. Also, there's footsteps ascending the staircase, and this marching band from hell just strikes up out of nowhere. So, at this point, George goes to the base of the staircase and looks up, which this is when he comes in contact with the robed demon that's staring him down. And I don't know if the demon is trying to tell him that this is its territory, or if the demon is trying to challenge him, but all I know is they make eye contact, and this is the straw that broke the camel's back, which earlier the Lutz family had tried to leave, but there was a really bad storm going on, so they ended up taking refuge in the house a little bit longer. But even though the storm is still going on, this is when they grab their shit and get the hell out of there, which I don't blame them. My fat gay ass would have been running down the road even if there was a tornado coming from behind. I'm gonna try not to be an asshole here because this book was labeled as a true story. So that means actual people were tied to the alleged events that happened in this book. So I'm going to try to respect them and I'm not going to dog anyone out, but I'm still going to voice my opinion. And that is, I believe the majority of this book was written just to be entertainment. Like, you do have a few facts in there, such as the DeFeo murders and stuff like that. But when it comes down to the paranormal activity, everything is so amped up, there's no way it could happen. And this is coming from someone who's not a skeptic. Like, I believe in ghosts, angels, demons, I believe in all of that. But what happens in this book is just too far-fetched. Like, I don't believe for 1 second that the statue of a lion bit someone. Then at the ending of the book, the house just goes so insane, there's just no possible way all of this could happen. The ending is honestly what you would see at the end of a blockbuster movie, or of course at the end of a best-selling book, which this is. So there's a lot of embellishments there, and also we just have a lot of things that I think where if the book was released today, people would have called bullshit on it a whole lot sooner. The Amityville Horror is an enjoyable read, and if you were to read this as a work of nonfiction, then it does read as a testimonial. But if you were to read this as a book of fiction, then it honestly comes across as nothing more than horror pulp fiction. And what I mean by that is the book goes from point A to point B without there hardly being any filler. Also, the character development is almost 0 to none. And the action scenes are hard-hitting and they're from beginning to end where they're just constant. So yeah, that's why I would label this as horror pulp fiction. Now, as far as believing in what I read, I don't believe everything that's in this book, and I think a lot of what happened was embellished. Like, a good example is, I've done paranormal investigations in the past, and I have encountered cold spots. But you don't go from sweating your ass off to freezing to death. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. And pretty much another thing that the book comments on is how being around evil spirits can make you physically ill and it can mess with your emotions. Now, in reality, I have seen where people who are highly sensitive have had migraines or become sick to the stomach when being around negative spirits. And I have also encountered where negative spirits do mess with your emotions, like anxiety, anger, and depression. However, if you were to leave the property, a lot of times that stays behind, especially if you were to tell the spirits that they cannot follow you home. So, yeah, that's just been my experiences. Now, as far as the book being a work of fiction, I noticed where the author commented on financial issues, which in reality, the Lutz children said that their parents weren't under a financial struggle during this time, but with the way the book is written, it seems like they are having financial problems. So this makes me think that the book is commenting on the fears that a lot of middle-class families probably had during that time, and they still likely have today. And that fear is, what happens if you invest everything you have in what could be your forever home? What happens if you make that investment and then everything is taken from you? Where do you go? What do you do? What happens next? And with this book, that's kind of the idea that I got from reading what would happen if a middle-class family had everything taken from them. But in this aspect, it is the idea that the home was taken from the Lutzes by spirits. And if we were to look into that a little bit more, it kind of stresses that as long as you have each other as a family, you have everything you need, and it's not the house that makes the home. So that was really interesting. And I was not scared with this book. There were a few scenes that did creep me out. Like when I was doing the spoiler section, there were a few times where I still had goosebumps as I was talking about some of the creepier moments. So yeah, those were really effective. But at the end of the day, I was very entertained with this book and I was engaged from beginning to end. With the Amityville Horror, if you've seen the original movie with Margot Kidder and James Brolin, then you've practically read the book. but there's still some differences in between the two. Like with the book, we do get some extra apparitions and we have some extra scenes regarding Jody the Pig Demon. So yeah, there are some differences. Now, I do still highly recommend that if you are a fan of paranormal fiction, then you should probably just go in and knock this off your to-be-read list, because it is an iconic book. And truth be it, it does for haunted houses what The Exorcist did for possession. So yeah, I do recommend it in that sense. And also, if you are looking to correspond this book with a particular time of year, the majority of this book happens in late December and early January. So technically, it could be a Christmas horror book. On to the questions. My first question is, what is a horror book you would recommend that's nonfiction? Load up the comments. My second question is, do you believe the hauntings that occurred at the Amityville house? Why or why not? Yes or no? Feel free to elaborate as much as what you like, and any type of trollish comments will be deleted. So, with that said, it's now time to move on to this weekend's meme, which if you would like to contribute to next weekend's meme, all you have to do is go to the description section of this video and befriend me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, which links to all of those are available in the description section. And once a week, I'll post an image and ask you to caption it, and the best caption gets mentioned here. This weekend's meme is fairly subtle, but we still get the point. Ashley Grantham from Facebook says, and then I said, am I really supposed to be scared of that? So, thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and thank you for watching. Well, now it's time for me to close out my video, which, before I do, I would like to say thank you to Lisa G and J.L. Mulvihill, which J.L. Mulvihill is a young adult fantasy author, and you can purchase her books in ebook, print, or audiobook, so be sure to check her out. And if you're wondering why I'm giving a shout out to these wonderful people, it's because they've had the opportunity to contribute to my Patreon account. And if you would like to contribute as well, just go to the description section of this video and click on the link that I provided for my Patreon. And for $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos. If you have a profession that you would like for me to tie to your name, just let me know and I'll do that as well. And for $10 a month, you'll still get the shout out, but I'll also send you over a photo at the beginning of every month, which I do creepy photography on the side, so that's what I'll send. And once you receive that image, you can print it off, do whatever you want with it. And if you're not able to contribute, no sweat. All I hope is that you continue to return to this channel and we have a good time together. And also, if you would like to hunt me down on social media, links to my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are all available in the description section of this video. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell, because I have more book reviews coming in the near future. So until we see each other again, I hope you have a wonderful week and sweet nightmares.